Good morning. Bonjour, Wache. I'd like to begin by expressing my deep concern over the news of the death of Johnny Noviello, found dead in ICE custody, a man who had moved to the United States from Canada when he was 11 years old, who apparently had a drug conviction that was covered off by community service and time off for good behavior, that ICE was aware of his medical conditions, and yet he was found dead in their custody. Ce matin, je demande que le Canada puisse ouvrir une enquête indépendante sur la mort de Johnny Noviello. C'est nécessaire pour le Canada de défendre nos valeurs, notre démocratie, notre frontière et pour protéger nos citoyens qui étaient kidnappés par les predators et les gangsters américains. Earlier this week, Homeland Security Director Kristi Noem held a forum in Michigan on the so-called threat of the northern border. The northern border, that's us, Canada. She presented this lurid presentation of rape and murder, Salvadorian gangs coming over the Canadian border to terrorize the American people. She was joined by Michigan Representative John James, who said that Michigan is now at the epicenter of the northern border crisis. And one of her officials reassured the American people that they were here to, quote, kick some ass. So whose ass are you going to kick? Ever since Donald Trump declared that Canada was a threat to national security last February, the rhetoric against our nation has been escalating. FBI Director Kash Patel claims that Canada is a source for all kinds of international cabals of Russian, Iranian, Chinese gangs who are heading over the border. He claims that of the 300 terrorists that he says he caught, 85% came from Canada. But were they wearing toques and lumberjack jackets? Then there's Ted Cruz, who says that Canada could be a staging ground for Hamas terrorism. Why? Because we accepted a very small percentage of people fleeing the genocide in Gaza. The likes of Patel and Noem are not there to present facts or to meet with Canadian officials about securing the border for both sides. This is about building a narrative. This is how MAGA operates. And we've seen this right-wing playbook used so many times. This is not about gaslighting. It's about creating a convenient enemy, an existential threat that must be dealt with. What is it going to be next? Are they going to claim that they found weapons of mass destruction in a garage in Charlottetown or Oakville? South Park, the movie, was funny, but South Park as a political administration is a dismal thing to witness. And this is all happening when Donald Trump threatens us. We're either going to pay billions in new tariffs or what? Give up our sovereignty, give up our nation? Well, that's not going to happen. So I'm here this morning to actually reach out to Kristi Noem and Kash Patel and Ted Cruz and MAGA Ambassador Pete Hoekstra and any Fox host who wants to weigh in on the Canadian border to reassure them. Canada is very concerned about the border as well. In fact, we're so concerned that we refuse to travel across it. And your increasing rhetoric against us is making us more determined not to spend a dime in any of your towns, your states, or your country. So let's talk about the state of the Canadian boycott right now. We see that wine sales from the United States to Canada, your number one market, America, is down 93%. That we've seen a $12.3 billion loss in American tourism. So when Representative James says the epicenter of the threat is Canada, I think he should go talk to some of his tourism operators who are seeing massive losses from Canada. Our refusal to cross the border isn't about fear. It is because we will not stoop to give money to a country that is no longer under the rule of law, where kidnapping people off the streets has become normalized. If you look at the biggest hits that are being faced by the United States in terms of Canadian refusal to spend dollars, number one is Florida. Yeah, the Florida that's talking about building an alligator Alcatraz. A Florida where states officials threaten to shoot people graveyard dead if they protest. That might sound great for MAGA, but Canadians find that language intolerable and inexcusable. And so, Mr. Ron DeSantis, no, we're not going to spend money in your state. I want to close by speaking to the American representatives who've been coming to Canada on a charm offensive to get us to come back. Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota, who said to Canadians, give us another chance. Really, Senator? I haven't heard you say anything to people like Kristi Noem or Kash Patel. When are you going to start speaking out to them? Or Senator Tim Kaine, who came to Ottawa and said, Canada, we love you. Well, if you loved us, you'd make sure that our citizens didn't have to worry that their phones were going to be seized at the border and whether or not there's pictures making fun of Donald Trump and whether or not they're going to be arrested and deported. Because if you're not willing to love us for the fact that we believe in the rule of law, then you don't love us. Or Governor Maura Healey, who came to meet our premiers and said, Canada is Massachusetts' #1 trading partner. Yes, we are, but we're not going back. Or to all the towns that are renaming their streets after Canadian place names in Canada. Thanks, but no thanks. If you loved us, you would love us for our values. What we're seeing right now is a nation that doesn't believe in equity and inclusion or under the rule of law. Those are our values. That's why our Prime Minister, Carney, is over in Europe talking about our new future as being part of Europe and no longer part of the United States. So finally, Ms. Noem, if you were hoping to make sure a big splash of threatening us and warning about the crisis of the northern border, you've done a damn good job of reminding us why we're not going back to your country. Canadians are not going to give a dime to a nation that threatens us, that undermines us, and that lies about the threats that we supposedly pose. Because the one thing that we do threaten the Americans with is our decency, our inclusion, and our belief in the rule of law. So we have many American friends, we have many American relatives, we have many American communities that we love and would love to visit again, but we are not going there as long as you are not under the rule of law. And as for Canada, we will remain true, north, strong, and free.